Dust devils danced across the red soil of New Terra as Lily checked the last pollination unit in Sector 7. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, adjusting sensors and clearing debris from the vents. Badger sat nearby, his black and white striped face pointed toward the horizon where dark clouds gathered like bruises against the pale green sky. Something felt wrong. The air carried a metallic taste that made Lily's teeth ache. Badger growled low in his throat, a sound she had learned to trust over their 4 years together. He weighed barely 14 kilograms, but fear had never existed in his vocabulary. When Badger worried, Lily paid attention. Her communication device crackled to life. Her father's voice cut through static. "Lily, get back to the settlement now. Storm warning upgraded to catastrophic. You have maybe 2 hours. 2 hours." She stood 40 kilometers from home. Lily grabbed her field pack and started running toward the transit station. Badger loped alongside her, his short legs churning with surprising speed. They reached the station in 15 minutes, her lungs burning from the thin atmosphere she had known since birth. The transit vehicle refused to start. Lily tried 3 times, then popped the engine panel. Fried circuits stared back at her. The storm had already begun its assault on electronics. "Not good," she whispered. Badger climbed onto her shoulder, his claws digging through her work shirt. His weight was familiar, comforting. Above them, the sky shifted from green to purple. Lightning flickered inside the clouds, but not the normal kind. These bolts moved horizontally, branching like veins across the entire sky. Ion storm. The worst kind. Lily's device crackled again. This time multiple voices overlapped. Colony command ordering evacuations. Her mother's voice calling her name. Then nothing. Dead silence. The electromagnetic pulse had begun. She looked around the transit station. Supplies, tools, anything useful. She stuffed her pack with emergency rations, a water recycler, and a thermal blanket. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of ozone and something acidic that made her eyes water. Badger jumped down and headed toward the old research outpost 3 kilometers east. Lily had explored it once, months ago. It was barely standing, but it had walls and a roof. Better than nothing. They ran. The storm hit before they reached shelter. Rain fell like needles, burning where it touched exposed skin. Lily pulled up her hood and wrapped her scarf across her face. The wind tried to push her sideways, but she leaned into it and kept moving. Badger disappeared into the tall grass ahead, reappearing every few seconds to make sure she followed. By the time they reached the outpost, her skin was covered in small welts. The rain was acidic, just as the warnings had predicted. She shoved open the damaged door and stumbled inside. Badger shook himself violently, spraying contaminated water everywhere. The outpost had been abandoned for years. Half the roof was gone. Equipment lay scattered across the floor, covered in dust and rust. But one corner remained relatively intact. Lily dragged a broken desk and 2 metal panels to create a makeshift shelter within the shelter. Outside, the storm screamed. Lightning struck so close the building shook. Through the gaps in the walls, Lily saw the landscape illuminated in purple and white flashes. Trees bent horizontal. Debris flew past like missiles. She pulled out her emergency kit and treated the acid burns on her arms. They stung viciously, but the neutralizing gel helped. Badger paced back and forth, his nose twitching. He stopped suddenly and stared at the eastern wall. 3 seconds later, that section of wall exploded inward. Lightning had struck the metal support beam. Sparks cascaded across the floor. Fire started in the dried grass that had blown inside. Lily grabbed the thermal blanket and smothered the flames. Smoke filled the space, making her cough. Badger grabbed her pant leg with his teeth and pulled her toward the opposite corner. She followed his lead, hauling their supplies with them. They huddled in the new position. Lily created another barrier using a fallen cabinet and some plastic sheeting she found. It was not much, but it would have to work. The storm would last days, according to the warnings. Maybe a week. She checked her food supplies. 12 ration bars. The water recycler still functioned. If she was careful, she could survive here. Wait for rescue, but what if rescue did not come? What if the storm was too powerful? She had heard stories of other colonies that vanished during catastrophic weather events. Sometimes nature won, no matter how advanced the technology. Lily pulled Badger close. He curled against her side, his warmth spreading through her chest. She scratched behind his ears the way he liked. "We will be okay," she told him. "We have survived worse." That was a lie. They had never survived anything like this. But saying it out loud made her feel better. Through the broken walls, she heard metal tearing. The roof section that remained attached began to peel away. Wind howled through the opening like a living thing. Rain poured in, soaking everything. Lily covered herself and Badger with the thermal blanket and plastic sheeting. The temperature dropped. The storm was pulling cold air from the upper atmosphere. Her breath became visible. She wrapped her arms around Badger, sharing body heat. Hours passed. The storm did not weaken. If anything, it grew stronger. Lily dozed in short bursts, waking whenever lightning struck close or debris hit the building. Each time she woke, Badger was alert, watching. Somewhere far away in the colony's command center, people argued about rescue missions. Alien observers from 4 different species watched the storm data with growing concern. They had seen similar events destroy settlements. Survival rates were nearly 0 for anyone caught outside protective domes. But Lily did not know any of that. She only knew the storm, the fear, and the warm body of her best friend pressed against her side. She only knew she had to survive the night, one night at a time. That was all anyone could do. Sleep refused to come properly. Lily drifted in and out of consciousness while the storm battered what remained of the outpost. Each crash of thunder jerked her awake. Each lightning strike painted the inside of her eyelids white even when closed. Badger had not slept at all. His eyes reflected the occasional flashes of light from outside. He sat rigid, every muscle tensed, watching, waiting. Around what Lily guessed was midnight, the building made a sound she had never heard before. A deep groan like metal bones breaking. The wall to their left began to buckle inward. She grabbed Badger and their supplies and scrambled to the far corner. 5 seconds later, the entire wall collapsed. Wind and rain exploded into the space. The temperature dropped another 10 degrees. They could not stay here. The building was dying. Lily pulled out her hand light and surveyed the wreckage. Most of the outpost was now exposed to the elements. But in the corner, she spotted something useful. A metal storage container, the kind designed to protect sensitive equipment. It was large enough for her to fit inside if she curled up small. She ran to it and pulled open the door. Empty except for some packing material and old wiring. Perfect. Lily dragged the container into the least damaged corner and wedged it between 2 support beams. She used pieces of the collapsed wall to create a barrier around it. Then she lined the inside with the thermal blanket and plastic sheeting. It was cramped, barely large enough for her and Badger together. But it was enclosed. Protected. The metal would shield them from the worst of the electromagnetic pulses. They climbed inside and she sealed the door, leaving only a small gap for air. Darkness swallowed them. The storm's howl became muffled but still present, a constant reminder of the violence outside. Badger settled on her lap. His breathing slowed. Finally, he allowed himself to rest. Lily tried to think through their situation logically. The storm would last days. The outpost would not survive. They needed to move, but moving during the storm meant certain death. Catch-22, her father would have called it. She thought about her parents. Her mother was probably organizing search parties despite the danger. Her father would be calculating survival odds and trying to modify equipment for rescue attempts. They were good people. Smart people. They would not give up on her, but they might not be able to reach her either. The container grew stuffy. Lily adjusted the gap slightly, letting in fresh air. Rainwater dripped through, but she could tolerate being damp. She could not tolerate suffocating. Her mind drifted to memories, learning to walk in New Terra's lighter gravity. Her 5th birthday when the colony received the genetic samples from Earth, including Badger's embryo. Watching him grow from a tiny kit into the fearless creature he was now, Badger had saved her life twice before. Once when she nearly stepped on a venomous ground snake. Another time when unstable soil almost gave way beneath her feet. He sensed danger before her human senses could detect it. She owed him everything. Hours crawled past. Lily checked her chronometer. 3 a.m. The storm showed no signs of weakening. If anything, the lightning had intensified. Purple arcs jumped from cloud to ground every few seconds. The electromagnetic interference must be wreaking havoc on anything electronic. A new sound joined the chaos. Hail. Ice pellets hammered the metal container like bullets. Some pieces were large enough to dent the exterior. Lily felt each impact vibrate through the walls. Badger's ears flattened. He burrowed deeper against her stomach. The hail lasted 20 minutes. When it stopped, the silence felt wrong. Lily cracked open the door and peered out. Ice covered everything. Some chunks were the size of her fist. The outpost looked like a disaster zone. Most of the remaining walls had collapsed under the hail's weight. Their metal container had survived. Barely. Dents covered its surface, but the structure held. Lily realized they had been lucky. Incredibly lucky. Another few meters to the left and they would have been crushed. She closed the door again and hugged Badger. "Good choice," she whispered. This was a good spot. He licked her hand. His tongue was rough and warm. Dawn came slowly. The sky lightened from black to dark gray. The rain continued, though less intense than before. Lightning still flashed, but the intervals between strikes grew longer. Lily forced herself to eat half a ration bar and drink some recycled water. She needed to maintain her strength. Badger ate some of the dried meat she kept for him. They sat together in the cramped container and waited. There was nothing else to do. Moving during the storm was suicide. Staying here was only slightly less dangerous. She tried her communication device, static, no signal. The electromagnetic interference was too strong. Even if someone was trying to reach her, the message would not get through. Around mid-morning, a new problem emerged. The ground beneath the container began to soften. Rain had saturated the soil. The weight of the container was causing it to sink slowly into mud. If it sank too far, they would be trapped inside, or worse, buried. Lily made a decision. They would have to leave soon. Maybe not today, but tomorrow at the latest. The outpost was no longer viable shelter. They would have to travel. 40 kilometers. Through the storm, it seemed impossible. But staying here guaranteed death. At least moving gave them a chance. She began planning. What to take. What to leave behind. The best route toward the colony. How to protect themselves from acid rain and lightning. How to navigate without electronic equipment. Badger watched her with intelligent eyes. She swore he understood. He always seemed to understand. Tomorrow, she told him. We walk tomorrow, he tilted his head. Then he curled up and went to sleep, trusting her completely. Lily hoped that trust was not misplaced. She hoped she was strong enough for what was coming. But hope and certainty were different things. The storm raged on. Night came again, and they survived it. One more night down. Many more to go. Gray light filtered through gaps in the wreckage when Lily made her final decision. They could not wait any longer. The container had sunk another 5 centimeters into the mud overnight. By evening, it would be completely buried. She organized their supplies with care. The water recycler went into her pack first. Most critical. Then 8 remaining ration bars, the medical kit, the thermal blanket, and her multi-tool. Everything else stayed behind. Weight would be their enemy on the long walk home. For protection, she fashioned crude rain gear from the plastic sheeting and metal strips from the destroyed equipment. She wrapped the plastic around her torso and secured it with wire. Not pretty, but functional. The metal pieces she shaped into a hood frame to keep the acidic rain off her face. Badger needed protection too. She created a small coat for him using more plastic and padding from the container's interior. He tolerated her efforts with patient annoyance, only growling once when she pulled the straps too tight. They ate a full ration bar each. Energy would matter. Lily filled her water bottle and attached it to her belt, ready as they would ever be. She pushed open the container door. Rain hit her immediately. The acid stung less with the plastic protection, but some still found gaps near her wrists and ankles. She would have to tolerate it. The landscape had transformed. Where familiar red soil had been, now only mud and debris remained. The storm had ripped vegetation from the ground and scattered it like trash. Pools of standing water reflected the purple sky. Lily oriented herself using the mountains in the distance. The colony lay northwest, 40 kilometers. She could walk 5 kilometers per hour in good conditions. In this hell, maybe 2. 20 hours of walking, spread across multiple days with rest periods. 4 days minimum, maybe 6. They had food for maybe 3 days if she rationed carefully. Do not think about that now. Just walk. She stepped out of the container and immediately sank ankle-deep in mud. Each step required effort to pull her boot free. Badger stayed close, his smaller size allowing him to move more easily across the surface. After 10 minutes, her legs ached. After 30, they burned. She stopped to rest against a fallen tree. Lightning struck a ridge 200 meters away. The thunder was immediate and deafening. Badger made a sound, something between a bark and a growl. He stared at the sky, then looked at her. He wanted to move now. She trusted him and pushed herself upright. They ran as best they could through the mud. 20 seconds later, lightning hit exactly where they had been resting. The tree exploded, sending burning fragments in all directions. Lily's heart hammered. Badger had known. Somehow he had sensed the electrical buildup before the strike. She made a new rule. When Badger said move, she would move. No questions. They continued northwest. The terrain grew worse. A ravine that had not existed before blocked their path, carved by rushing water. Lily followed it west for half a kilometer before finding a place narrow enough to cross. She used a fallen log as a bridge. It sagged under her weight but held. Badger scampered across like it was nothing. The rain intensified around noon. Visibility dropped to maybe 10 meters. Lily could barely see where she was placing her feet. She slipped and fell twice, coating herself in mud. The second fall sent shooting pain up her wrist. Sprained, not broken. She wrapped it with strips torn from her shirt. They found temporary shelter under an overhanging rock face. Lily checked her chronometer. They had traveled approximately 6 kilometers. Not bad for the conditions, but not good enough. At this rate, they would run out of food before reaching the colony. She allowed herself and Badger a small meal, half a ration bar each. The water recycler was working, slowly processing rainwater into something drinkable. She let Badger drink first, then took several gulps herself. Her body ached everywhere. Burns, bruises, and muscle strain competed for attention. She wanted to sleep, but they needed to cover more distance before dark. They walked for another 3 hours. The landscape became increasingly unfamiliar. Storm damage had erased landmarks. Lily navigated by compass and by keeping the mountains on her right. Basic orienteering, the kind her father had taught her when she was 8. She wondered if he was proud of her right now, or terrified for her. Probably both. As darkness approached, they found better shelter. A maintenance shed, half collapsed but with one corner still intact. Lily cleared debris and created a small dry space. They huddled together, sharing warmth. Wind howled outside. The storm was entering another intense phase. Lightning turned night into day every few seconds. Thunder shook the ground. Badger pressed against her side and made a soft chirping sound he rarely used. Contentment, or as close as he got to it. Despite everything, he trusted they would be okay. Lily wished she had his confidence. Her body hurt. Her supplies were limited. The storm showed no signs of stopping. And they had only covered 6 kilometers, 34 to go, but they were alive. Both of them. Against odds that should have killed them already. That counted for something. She closed her eyes and tried to rest. Sleep came in fragments. Each time she woke, Badger was alert, watching the darkness. Taking the first watch, then the second, then all of them. Sometime deep in the night, she heard a new sound. Mechanical. Hovering. A drone, maybe. Rescue. She grabbed her light and ran outside, waving it frantically at the sky. The sound faded, moved away. Whoever it was had not seen her. Lily stood in the rain, arms still raised, hope draining from her chest. They were not looking in the right place, or they could not fly in these conditions. Or they had given up, she was on her own. She and Badger. Nobody was coming. The realization hit hard, but it also clarified things. No rescue meant no backup plan. They walked out, or they died here. Simple as that. She went back inside, curled up with Badger, and slept. When dawn came, they would walk again, and again, and again, until they made it home or could not walk anymore. That was the only option left. Pain woke Lily before dawn. Every muscle in her body screamed protest when she tried to move. Her wrist had swollen during the night, turning purple and yellow. The acid burns on her arms had blistered. She looked at herself and almost laughed. She resembled a corpse more than a living person. Badger licked her face until she sat up. Business as usual for him. Pain was irrelevant. Only forward movement mattered. She forced down a ration bar that tasted like cardboard and chemicals. 4 bars left, 2 days of food at current rationing. They had covered maybe 12 kilometers total. 28 remained. The math did not work. But math had stopped mattering. They walked. Mud, rain, lightning. The same hell as yesterday, but somehow worse because her body had less strength to fight it. Each step required conscious thought. Lift foot, move forward. Plant foot, Repeat. Over and over until the motion became automatic. Around mid-morning, they reached what used to be a stream. Now it was a raging river, brown with mud and debris. Trees rushed past in the current. No way to cross. Lily followed the bank south, looking for a bridge or shallow point. After 2 kilometers, she found neither. Just more violent water. They had to cross. Going around would add days they did not have. She studied the current and spotted a pattern. Every few minutes, the flow decreased slightly as upstream surges passed. Maybe 30 seconds of calmer water before the next surge. Suicide to try it. But staying on this side was suicide too. She found a long branch strong enough to use as a walking stick. Badger understood what she planned and growled his disapproval. She scratched his ears. I know, but we have no choice. When the next lull came, she stepped into the water. Ice cold, moving fast even during the calm period. She used the stick to probe for solid footing. 1 step, 2. The water reached her knees. 3 steps. Her waist. Badger leaped from the bank and swam. His small body fought the current with surprising strength. He reached the far side first and barked urgently. Lily was halfway across when the next surge hit. Water slammed into her like a wall. Her feet left the bottom. The current grabbed her and pulled her downstream. She kept hold of the stick and kicked desperately. Her boots touched rocks. She pushed hard and angled toward the bank. The stick caught on something solid and she used it to pull herself into shallower water, crawling now, fighting for every centimeter. Badger grabbed her sleeve with his teeth and pulled. Together they made it to the bank. Lily collapsed on the mud, gasping. Her pack had taken on water. She checked the contents. Water recycler damaged but functional. Rations soggy but edible. Medical kit intact. They had lost an hour and most of her remaining energy, but they had crossed. The afternoon brought a new horror. The ground itself became dangerous. Sinkholes had formed where the storm water had dissolved the soil underneath. Lily nearly fell into one that opened suddenly beneath her feet. Badger's warning saved her. He had stopped 5 meters back and refused to come closer until she changed direction. She started following his lead entirely. When he circled left, she went left. When he stopped, she stopped. He could sense the unstable ground somehow. Maybe vibrations. Maybe something else. It did not matter. She trusted him completely. They covered 8 kilometers that day. Lily was proud of that. Proud and exhausted beyond description. They sheltered in a cluster of large boulders that provided some protection from wind and rain. She used the last of the medical gel on her burns. They looked infected. Red streaks spread from some of the blisters. Not good. She needed real medical treatment soon. 3 ration bars left. 20 kilometers to go. 1 more day of food. 2 days of walking minimum, probably 3. The numbers screamed impossible. Her body agreed. But Badger curled against her and made his soft chirping sound, and somehow that made the impossible seem merely difficult. Night brought fever. Lily shivered despite the thermal blanket. Her head felt thick and fuzzy. The infected burns were spreading poison through her system. She needed antibiotics. She needed rest. She needed a hospital. She had none of those things. Badger stayed pressed against her all night, sharing his warmth. Every time she woke from fever dreams, he was there, watching, protecting. Morning came gray and cold. Lily felt worse. Standing required enormous effort. Walking seemed beyond her capability, but she did it anyway. 1 foot in front of the other, mechanical, automatic, thought was too expensive. They walked through morning, through afternoon. She fell 4 times. Each time Badger helped her up. How, she was not sure. He was too small to lift her. But somehow his presence, his refusal to let her stay down, gave her the strength to rise. Around what might have been 3 o'clock, they found something. A crashed drone. Not old wreckage, recent. The metal was still warm. Rescue attempts were happening. People were trying. Lily examined the drone. High-end equipment. Military grade. And it had been destroyed by the storm. Ripped apart by lightning or wind. Proof that even advanced technology could not handle these conditions, but she was still walking. She and Badger, flesh and determination. No shields, no powered armor, just stubbornness and the refusal to die. She pulled components from the wreckage. A power cell, wiring, a small transmitter. Her fever-addled brain struggled to form a plan. Could she build something a signal? Her father had taught her basic electronics. Maybe. Maybe if she could focus. She put the parts in her pack. Too tired to work on it now. Tonight, if she survived until tonight, they walked. 15 kilometers behind them. 25 to go. 2 ration bars left. Fever burning through her body. Badger limping now, favoring his left front leg. They should be dead. The universe clearly wanted them dead. But humans were experts at ignoring what the universe wanted. That was what made them human. Lily stumbled and caught herself. Not dead yet, she whispered. Not dead yet, Badger barked agreement. They walked on into the storm. Fever dreams mixed with reality until Lily could not tell them apart. She walked through landscapes that shifted and changed. Sometimes the ground was solid. Sometimes it was water. Sometimes her mother walked beside her, offering encouragement. Then her mother would dissolve into rain. Only Badger remained constant. Real. His weight against her leg when they stopped. His bark when danger approached. He was her anchor to reality. She did not remember making camp that night. She found herself under an overturned vehicle, some kind of transport that the storm had flipped and carried far from any road. Badger was licking her face, insistent, annoying. She tried to push him away. He bit her hand, not hard, but enough to shock her back to awareness. She blinked and looked around. Where was she? When was she? Her pack lay open beside her. The drone components scattered across the ground. Had she been working on something? Memory returned slowly. The transmitter. She had been trying to build a distress beacon. Her hands had done the work while her brain floated in fever. She picked up the device she had created. Crude. Wires twisted together. Power cell attached with tape from the medical kit. But it looked functional. She found the activation switch and pressed it. A small light blinked. Red, green, transmitting. Whether anyone could receive the signal through the storm interference was another question. But she had tried. That was all she could do. Lily ate the second to last ration bar. She gave Badger the rest of his dried meat. They drank recycled water that tasted metallic but was clean. The water recycler was failing. Another day, maybe 2, before it stopped working entirely. Her fever had broken during the night. She felt weak but clearer. The infection was still there, but her body was fighting it. Maybe she was young enough and strong enough to win? Maybe. She checked her chronometer. Day 5. 5 days in this hell. They had covered approximately 19 kilometers. 21 remained, so close. Impossibly far. Badger's limp had worsened. He could barely put weight on his left leg. She examined it carefully. Swollen. Probably sprained or fractured. He needed rest. But rest meant death. I'm sorry, she told him. We have to keep going. He licked her hand. No complaint, no blame. Just acceptance and determination. If she could walk, he would walk. That was his entire philosophy. They left the overturned vehicle and continued northwest. The storm had weakened slightly. Lightning was less frequent. Rain fell steadily, but without the earlier violence. Progress came easier. 4 kilometers by noon. Another 3 by mid-afternoon. 7 kilometers in one day. Her best performance yet. 28 total. 14 remaining. The last ration bar went into her stomach that night. Nothing left now. The water recycler produced barely a trickle. She drank it all and gave Badger the rest. Tomorrow they would walk without food. Tomorrow they would likely walk without water. But they would walk. Because stopping meant dying, and she refused to give death the satisfaction. She worked on the transmitter, trying to boost its signal. Her knowledge of electronics was limited, but desperation made her creative. She attached a piece of metal from the vehicle as an antenna. The blinking light seemed brighter. Maybe it would help. Somewhere far away in the colony's command center, her father's console beeped. A weak signal. Barely detectable. But there. Life signs. Movement. Coming from Sector 12, approximately 15 kilometers out. He stared at the screen. It had to be her. It had to be. The alien observers saw it too. They had been tracking the storm's progress, documenting the destruction. When 2 life signs appeared in their long-range sensors, moving steadily toward the colony, they could not believe it. One of them, a scientist from a species known for its logical thinking, spoke to its colleagues. Impossible. No unshielded life form survives 5 days in Class 7 ion storms. The radiation alone should have killed them. Another observer, older and more experienced with humans, made a sound like laughter. You have studied humans in laboratories. I have studied them in practice. They survive because they do not know they are supposed to die. Ignorance of limits makes them limitless. In the shelter, Lily knew nothing about the signal reaching home. She knew nothing about the debate among alien observers. She only knew that Badger was sleeping, his breathing steady despite the pain in his leg. She only knew that dawn would come and they would walk 14 kilometers. 1 day of walking in good conditions. 3 in these conditions. But the storm was weakening. She could feel it. The pressure in the air had changed. The sky was lighter than it had been. Maybe they would make it. Maybe. She allowed herself to hope. Just a little. Just enough to get through another night. Dreams came again. But these were different. Not fever dreams. Real sleep. Her body repairing itself as best it could. When she woke, her head was clear. The infections had not spread further. Her wrist still hurt but moved more easily. Badger was awake, staring at the sky. She followed his gaze. Stars. Actual stars visible through gaps in the clouds. She had not seen stars since the storm began. It was ending. After 6 days of fury, New Terra's sky was clearing. They walked before dawn. The terrain was still treacherous, but visibility had improved. Lily could see further, plan better routes. They made good time. 5 kilometers by noon, 9 remaining. Her stomach cramped with hunger. Her mouth was dry. But her legs kept moving. 1 foot in front of the other, again. Badger limped beside her. He had stopped trying to hide his pain. Every step clearly hurt. But he did not stop. Would not stop. Lily picked him up and carried him for an hour. But he grew restless and demanded to be put down. Pride. Stubbornness. He would finish this walk on his own legs or not at all. They saw the colony's lights that evening. Distant, hazy, but real. 9 kilometers became 6. Became 3, so close. Almost there. Almost home. Lily started crying. She did not realize she was doing it until she tasted salt. Relief. Joy. Disbelief that they had actually survived. Badger barked. His tail, usually active and expressive, gave a single wag. They had done it. The storm had taken everything. But it had not taken them. They walked toward the lights. Dawn on the 7th day broke clean and clear. Lily stood 3 kilometers from the colony's outer perimeter and watched the sun rise over New Terra for the first time in a week. The sky was blue-green again. The air smelled wrong, chemically altered by the storm, but the violence had passed. She looked down at herself. Her clothes were rags held together by mud and wire. Her exposed skin was covered in burns, bruises, and cuts. Her hair had become a tangled mess of filth. She probably weighed 5 kilograms less than when the storm started. Badger sat beside her, his black and white fur matted with mud. His left leg held at an awkward angle, but his eyes were bright, alert, triumphant. "Ready?" she asked him. He barked once. "Always ready." They walked the final distance slowly, not from caution but from exhaustion. Their bodies had given everything and were running on fumes and determination. Each step was a small victory. The colony's outer sensor grid detected them first. Alarms sounded. People rushed to monitoring stations. Her father saw the readings and ran for the airlock, not bothering with proper decontamination procedures. Her mother was right behind him. The outer gate opened as Lily approached. A crowd gathered but kept their distance. She looked like something from a nightmare. A ghost covered in mud. Nobody was sure if she was real. Then Badger limped ahead and people recognized him, the girl's honey badger, which meant the girl was Lily, the one they had marked as dead 3 days ago, the one whose memorial service was scheduled for tomorrow. Her father reached her first. He stopped 3 meters away, staring, checking that his eyes were not lying. His daughter, alive, walking here. "Hi, Dad," Lily said. Her voice was rough, damaged by acid rain and dehydration. "We made it." He closed the distance and grabbed her, careful of her injuries but desperate to hold her. Her mother arrived seconds later and wrapped both of them in her arms. All 3 stood there, crying. Badger sat patiently and waited for the humans to finish their emotional display. Medical teams arrived. They loaded Lily onto a stretcher despite her protests. Badger limped alongside, refusing to be separated. The medics knew better than to argue with a honey badger. They set up a second stretcher for him. In the medical center, doctors worked quickly. IV fluids for dehydration, antibiotics for infections, treatment for burns and radiation exposure. Her injuries were severe but manageable. Another day in the storm would have killed her. Maybe even another 12 hours, but she had made it. Badger received treatment in the same room. His leg was fractured, not sprained. The veterinary staff set it and created a small cast. He tolerated the procedure with his usual grumpy patience. News spread through the colony within the hour. The girl and her honey badger had survived. 40 kilometers through a Class 7 ion storm. No powered equipment. No shelter. Just determination and each other. The alien observers requested a meeting. The colony's administrator granted it, though she warned them Lily needed rest. They promised to be brief. 4 aliens entered the medical center that evening. Different species, different appearances, but all carrying the same expression. Respect, wonder, maybe a little fear. The eldest, a creature that looked like it was made of gray stone, spoke first. We have observed 17 colonies across the galaxy face similar storms. None survived without proper shelter. Most died even with protection. You are the first to walk 40 kilometers through the heart of such a storm and live. Lily was too tired for politics or speeches. I had help, she said, pointing at Badger. He kept me alive. Another alien, thin and crystalline, stepped forward. We have studied Earth species extensively. Honey badgers are remarkable, but they are not supernatural. You survived because of something we did not account for. What's that? Lily asked. Partnership, symbiosis. You were not one creature struggling alone. You were two, combining your strengths and covering each other's weaknesses. Humans do this instinctively. Bond with other species. Trust them. Rely on them. The alien made a gesture that might have been their version of a bow. We underestimated what that means. The stone-like alien spoke again. We will update our records. Humans possess extraordinary resilience, not through physical superiority, but through psychological determination and social bonding. They refuse to accept death, even when death is the logical outcome. Lily scratched Badger's ears. We just help each other. That's what you do when you care about someone. You don't quit on them. The aliens exchanged looks. Such a simple concept, but apparently revolutionary to them. They left after a few more questions. Lily heard later that their report to the Galactic Council was thousands of pages long, analyzing every aspect of her survival. She did not care about reports. She cared about the warm hospital bed and the knowledge that Badger was safe. Her parents stayed with her through the night. They talked about everything and nothing, the colony's damage, who had survived, the rebuilding plans, but mostly they just sat together, grateful to be alive. 3 months later, New Terra was recovering. Buildings repaired, fields replanted. The storm would be remembered, but it had not destroyed them. Lily returned to work in the agricultural zones. Badger accompanied her. His leg healed, though he walked with a slight limp now. They were famous throughout the sector. News services wanted interviews. Scientists wanted to study them. Other colonies requested honey badgers for their genetic vaults. Lily declined most requests. She was not a hero. She was just a girl who walked home during a storm, with her best friend, but the galaxy remembered. Ships passing through the system would transmit messages of respect. Other colonists facing disasters thought of the girl and her honey badger, and found the strength to keep trying, because that was the lesson. Not that humans were invincible. They were not. But they were stubborn. They refused to quit, and when they bonded with other creatures, shared their burdens and their strengths, they became something more than the sum of their parts. Lily stood in Sector 7 one evening, checking pollination units like she had 6 months ago. The sky was clear. Stars shone bright. Badger sat nearby, watching the horizon. She thought about the storm, the pain, the fear, the impossible walk. And she smiled. They had survived. Not through luck, not through technology, through partnership and refusal to surrender, through the simple act of helping each other. Take one more step. The storm had taken everything. Buildings, equipment, lives, but it had not taken what mattered most. It had not taken their will to survive. And that made all the difference.